On Thursday, the 16th of August, 2001, 11-year-old Shannon Nicole Paulk disappeared from her home in Candlestick Park, a mobile home community in Prattville, Alabama, and was last seen in the community around noon that day. Shannon's 16-year-old sister was home babysitting after her mom left for work at 7 a.m. When Marie Paulk, Shannon's mother, came home at 3 p.m. from work, Shannon had not been home. At about 7:15 p.m., the family became concerned and started asking neighbors if they had seen Shannon. About 30 or so Candlestick Park residents began looking for Shannon, and the police were alerted at about 9 p.m. on the Thursday she went missing. Her father, Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz, who lived in Eufaula and was separated from her mother, was not suspected of any wrongdoing in her missing persons case. Police began searching through Thursday night, covering the park several times and going door to door Friday afternoon. Officers stopped traffic going into and out of the community on Friday, displaying Shannon's picture and asking anyone if they had seen her. Autauga County Rescue Squad members also assisted in the search on Friday the 17th to find Shannon, along with the Prattville Fire Department, who checked a pond at Candlestick Park. On Saturday, the 18th of August, 2001, 5 FBI agents got involved and gave their assistance to help the investigation in order to help find Shannon. They were also helping to conduct polygraph tests for Prattville police, and Marie Paulk was at the Prattville Police Department at noon Saturday to take a polygraph test. The FBI agents also gave other members of Shannon's family polygraphs. On Sunday, the 19th of August, 2001, the Prattville police set up a 24-hour hotline that was created to help with the search. More than a week had gone by since 11-year-old Shannon Nicole Paulk disappeared, and the police got a break in her missing persons case with a witness who saw Shannon Paulk with a person with blonde hair and a ponytail later in the day after her last known sighting, which was noon on Thursday, the 16th of August, 2001. At that point, the authorities would not reveal if the person was a man or a woman. After the witness gave information to investigators, the FBI task force, which called itself Shannon's Task Force, arrested 2 men who lived in the same mobile home park as 11-year-old Shannon Paulk in Candlestick Park. One of the men who was arrested was 55-year-old Jack Earl Root Beer Man Gibson of 1374 Metz Court in Candlestick Park. He was arrested on 5 charges of possession of obscene matter containing persons under the age 17. The other man who was arrested was 41-year-old Ty K. Foster of 1633 Astros Avenue. He faced sodomy charges, according to his arrest reports. Additional charges for sex-related offenses were going to be added. Foster's arrest came after several months of an ongoing investigation by the Prattville Police Department. Both arrests were not connected to Shannon Paulk's missing person investigation. On Wednesday, the 29th of August, 2001, authorities revealed and were showing around a composite sketch of a man believed to have been seen with Shannon about mid-afternoon the day she vanished. Investigators were looking for a white man between the ages of 35 and 45 with hazel eyes, brownish hair, and a darker brown mustache. He was described as being of a stocky build with a beer belly. He also may have had a mole on his face. Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth was quick to point out the man was not a suspect in the case. At that point, he was being treated as a witness. Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth said, "We need to know who he is so we can question him to see if he can provide any information useful to the investigation." He said the composite is used as a description of who we are looking for. Some of the man's exact features may be missing from the composite. The release of the composite drawing of the man breathed new life into the investigation, according to Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth. Approximately 200 potential names of men fitting the description were given to investigators by the beginning of September 2001. On Wednesday, the 5th of September 2001, a large billboard went up on U.S. Highway 31 near the neighborhood where she disappeared. On Saturday, the 8th of September 2001, a 3-minute segment about Shannon Nicole Paulk on America's Most Wanted was broadcast, showing facts about her case to a national TV audience. On Tuesday, the 11th of September 2001, the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper reported that after the nationally broadcasted 3-minute segment on Saturday night's America's Most Wanted, the police received 96 new tips. Since the composite was released back in late August 2001, officials said they have received more than 300 potential names for the man, but nothing definite. On Saturday, the 29th of September 2001, investigators released descriptions of 2 vehicles the man being sought as a witness in the case may have been driving. Investigators were looking for a Jeep similar to a CJ7 or Wrangler that was red with a soft top and black interior with round headlights. Investigators were also looking for a 4-door small passenger car that is off-white with a gold or silver tag frame, which looks like a braided rope. In the first week of October 2001, authorities released 3 photographs of Shannon Paulk, hoping Tri-County residents may have seen her. The photo of her sitting on the plastic chair was taken 2 days before her disappearance. On Saturday, the 6th of October 2001, 2 rabbit hunters made a tragic discovery on the opening day of rabbit season. A body of a young girl was found in the Autauga County Community Hunting Area, a public hunting preserve about 15 miles north of Prattville. The 2 rabbit hunters, James Gullidge and Clifford Ziegler, were hunting rabbits when they discovered the remains, a black plastic bag and clothing in a pile. Ziegler said he believed the body was Shannon Paulk because he recognized her short brownish hair and the shorts with a butterfly on them. The men said that the body had been bound with rope and placed in a trash bag with the clothing. On Tuesday, the 16th of October 2001, the family of Shannon Nicole Paulk got given the news they had been dreading. The Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences used DNA to identify the remains and confirmed it was Shannon. Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth said the cause of death was still under investigation. On Friday, the 19th of October 2001, 11-year-old Shannon Nicole Paulk's funeral occurred at the sanctuary of East Memorial Baptist Church in Prattville. Shannon Nicole Paulk was later laid to rest in Brookside Memorial Gardens in Millbrook. On Saturday, March 16, 2002, the Prattville Progress released an article about the issue investigators faced when it came to identifying Shannon Paulk's remains because her dental records were outdated. In the article, it reveals the Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth claims the police have 3 suspects, and that evidence which was recovered from the crime scene where the body was found is in the forensics pipeline. It was revealed in an article by the Montgomery Advertiser on Friday the 29th of March 2002 that investigators had arrested Jack Earl Gibson on Thursday the 28th of March 2002 and was facing 1,000 charges of possession of child sexual abuse material. Jack Earl Gibson, who was also known as Root Beer Man, was previously arrested on August 19, 2001 on 4 counts of possession of child sexual abuse material by the FBI task force investigating Shannon's disappearance. He was arrested at his home at 1374 Metz Court, which is in Candlestick Park where Shannon lived. Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth said Shannon Paulk was known to frequent Jack Earl Gibson's home and he would pay her to clean his house. He said investigators are looking at him in the Shannon case, along with several other people. Jack Earl Gibson was known as Root Beer Man because he gave the kids in the neighborhood root beer. Gibson was charged with possessing images of nude prepubescent girls, estimating the girls' ages at 6 to 12. The police chief said investigators had recovered about 1,200 pornographic images from Gibson's computer. Gibson was employed as a maintenance man at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Montgomery. On Friday, the 28th of February 2003, 42-year-old Ty K. Foster of 1633 Astros Avenue was indicted on 9 counts of sodomy that occurred while he was free on bond awaiting trial on nearly 3 dozen child pornography counts. Prattville Police Chief Alfred Wadsworth said Foster is a suspect in the August 2001 disappearance and death of Shannon Paulk, and that there are several other suspects in the case. He declined to name any of the other suspects. Shannon Nicole Paulk lived in Candlestick Park, the same mobile home community where Foster lived. Ty Foster was being investigated since October of 2000 before Shannon disappeared, and investigators had been very interested in him in the early phases of Shannon's case because of his history. In June 2003, lawyers for Ty Foster filed a motion for a change of venue in his sexual abuse trial that was slated for October, claiming his link as a suspect in the Shannon Paulk case has poisoned the jury pool in Autauga County. 43-year-old Ty Foster's trial for the 9 counts of sodomy he was charged with went ahead in October 2003 and was moved to Baldwin County because Foster's name was associated with the high-profile Shannon Paulk kidnapping, slaying case. Ty Foster pleaded guilty to 2 Class C felony counts of assault, which involved a 9-year-old boy. On the second day of the trial, he took a plea and pled guilty, which meant that he escaped the convicted sex offender label. The plea possibility was discussed with victims, their family, and law enforcement authorities before it was accepted. Ty Foster was indicted on 9 counts of sodomy involving a minor boy and girl, but pled guilty to assault charges in a plea agreement. He was sentenced on November 12, 2003 to a 10-year split sentence, which he had to serve a minimum of 3 years, and the judge may decide later to impose the rest of the sentence. Foster said if he went to jail, he could not be a father to his children. He said he had been a productive citizen, claiming he works and votes. He said at his sentencing, if he went to jail, he'd be a burden on the taxpayer because he will be in jail and his children will be on welfare because he won't be there to support them. Information also was revealed that very small traces of Shannon Nicole Paulk's blood was found in Ty Foster's home when police searched his property in Candlestick Park. He told investigators that Shannon had a nosebleed once in his home, and that's why her blood was there. Shannon's mother did confirm that she would get nosebleeds. Foster's children were also friends with Shannon, and she played with them at Ty Foster's home. Foster also did not help in the search to find Shannon Paulk. In February 2004, investigators working on the Shannon Paulk case contacted Florida authorities in connection with the Carly Brucia abduction and murder. Joseph P. Smith, 37, was charged with kidnapping and first-degree murder in the Florida case. Investigators believe he looked like the composite sketch in the Shannon Paulk case. His victim was also 11 years old, and Carly Brucia and Shannon Paulk were both tall for their age and had sandy brown hair. The ABI, Alabama Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI got in contact with Florida authorities. Joseph Smith was later convicted of 11-year-old Carly Brucia's murder in 2004 and died in prison at age 55 on Monday, July 26, 2021. In August 2006, investigators in the Shannon Paulk case were looking at the possibility her abduction and murder was connected to 2 other cases which had more than one similarity to her own. Teresa Dean, who was also 11 like Shannon, disappeared on August 15, 1999 from the trailer park where she lived in Macon, Georgia. She was last seen on Lawrence Street at around 4 p.m. by a neighbor. She was never found and her body was never recovered. Just 2 years later, on August 16, 2001, Shannon Paulk disappeared and was seen talking to an unidentified man in Candlestick Park where she lived with her family. Shannon was later found by rabbit hunters in October of that year. On August 19, 2003, 2 years after Shannon's disappearance, 11-year-old Heaven Leshay Ross from Northport, Alabama, was abducted from the Willowbrook trailer park where she lived, and her remains were later found on Monday, the 19th of December 2006, in an abandoned house down a rural dirt road in Holt in Tuscaloosa County, Alabama. On August 16, 2006, which was the 5th-year anniversary of Shannon Paulk's disappearance, investigators increased the reward money for information in the case to $10,000. They also revealed a second sketch, which was a rough sketch of a man allegedly seen with Shannon the day she disappeared. He was described as being about 6 foot tall with a stocky build and extremely hairy, muscular arms. He had yellow, crooked teeth and a hump on the bridge of his nose as if it had been broken. At 8 p.m. on Saturday, the 10th of March 2007, America's Most Wanted broadcasted another segment on the Shannon Paulk case, revealing new details about a new lead out of South Carolina and a disturbing phone call which was made to Marie Paulk, Shannon's mother. On the evening of the 8th of September 2007, America's Most Wanted broadcasted an update on the Shannon Paulk case. In a 14th of August 2011 Montgomery Advertiser article, it was revealed by District Attorney Randall Houston that investigators no longer believe the Teresa Dean and Heaven Ross unsolved cases were connected to the abduction and murder of Shannon Nicole Paulk. In the article, Prattville's interim police chief Tim Huggins claimed the investigation into Shannon Paulk's unsolved murder case is still active. Shannon's task force, made up of the Prattville Police Department, FBI, Alabama Bureau of Investigation, and the Autauga County Sheriff's Office, was still in place. In February 2017, a special Autauga County 18-member panel grand jury, which was a review-type investigative grand jury, was put in place to look at and analyze evidence in the investigation for 6 months. District Attorney Randall Houston said evidence was being retested in the case and that any new evidence which comes in, the grand jury will be able to review it, along with the older evidence. It was also revealed in February 2017 that the first and second composite sketches of a man with a mole on his face were no longer viable, according to Autauga County District Attorney Randall Houston. He said, "I need the public to know that composite is not credible," said Houston, who explained that the public has been very good about giving tips, though most are based on the now debunked sketches. "We've re-interviewed witnesses. We've talked to different people. We've talked to critical people in making that composite," Houston said. "And now we just believe. We're not saying there wasn't a white male involved. That's not what we're saying. And we're not saying there wasn't a white male involved that had a mole on his face. We're just saying that that composite now is not credible. So if you're basing your call or your tip on what one of those two pictures looks like in the composites that are out there, we ask you not to." Houston said he does not consider the sketches a blow to the investigation, instead a turning point. "Now we know what we're not looking for," he said. Houston said he didn't know if he would have called the sketches his best pieces of evidence. "We have lots of evidence, and I think we have some very good evidence that we're looking at and we're trying to get tested. But it was an important piece, I will say that," the DA admitted. "It was an important piece of evidence and something that we thought could lead." Now, you have to understand that for years we have gotten information based upon this composite, and those leads have been followed, and they've never led to anything. And the reason they've never led to anything, we understand now, is because it was not credible to begin with. In March 2018, Autauga County District Attorney Randall Houston said that the grand jury reviewing Shannon Paulk's unsolved murder case would likely have their term extended, and that the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency still needs the grand jury's help. He was asking the courts to extend the panel's term. In August 2021, Prattville Police Department lead investigator Sergeant Tom Allen talked about the Shannon Paulk case to a Montgomery Advertiser reporter and claimed it was not a cold case and the case was still very active with a team still working on it. He said that he hopes that advancements in forensic technology would help investigators crack the case, and he believes Shannon's unsolved abduction and murder would be solved eventually. On the day 11-year-old Shannon Nicole Paulk disappeared, on Thursday the 16th of August 2001, Shannon was supposedly going to visit her friend just before 8 a.m., but that piece of information was not confirmed. Shannon Paulk was going to do an errand for her mom to pick up a baby stroller, and she walked around her community with a stroller knocking on doors. Shannon Paulk had apparently left the stroller somewhere and needed to find it. When she found it, she was seen using it, and the next place she went to was a friend's house on Metz Court at 10 a.m. to visit her friend. Whilst there, she asked her friend's mother if she could be taken to the gas station to get some candy. Her friend was still asleep when she arrived at the home, and her mom told Shannon to come back later, telling her she would take her to go get candy then. It was reported that Shannon had stayed at that home for about 30 minutes, and around 11:45 a.m., an elderly neighbor of hers, known as Miss Mary, who lived on Giants Drive, saw Shannon outside. Miss Mary could not let Shannon help take care of her little dog, as Shannon would often do because she had to go to a doctor's appointment. Shannon then walked away from Mary's home and was carrying her nephew's baby stroller over her head. Afterwards, Miss Mary saw Shannon knock on the door of a man who lived in the neighborhood, who had the nickname Halloween Man because he would give candy to kids in the neighborhood and decorated his yard for charity at Halloween. Halloween Man did not answer the door after Shannon knocked, and Miss Mary then assumed he wasn't home. Shannon then left with the stroller and was seen by Miss Mary heading towards the back of the mobile home park via Dodgers Drive towards a group of homes closer to her own on Expos Court. After Shannon knocked on Halloween Man's home, she went to the home of a Prattville police officer, which was just 2 houses down from her own home on Expos Court at approximately 12 p.m. She wanted to check on a puppy she had rescued that her neighbors were keeping for her. 2 friends of Shannon's, who were 2 boys, answered the door, followed by their stepdad, who was the Prattville police officer. He told Shannon that she couldn't come in because he needed to leave for work at the Prattville Police Department. His wife had a house rule that was to not allow young visitors in when she was not at home. The Prattville police officer was the last person to see Shannon alive. When he left for work, he sees the stroller she was holding laying by the curb of the neighbor who went by the nickname Halloween Man, who did not answer the door when Shannon knocked on his door. It's speculated that because of this information, Shannon was possibly likely abducted between the time window of opportunity of 12:05 p.m. and 1:15 p.m. The stroller was later found by a pregnant neighbor who returned home at an unknown time and noticed a stroller had been abandoned and thought it was just trash that had been discarded on the curb outside of Halloween Man's home. The pregnant neighbor took the stroller home and cleaned it to possibly use it. By cleaning the stroller, she removed DNA which may not have been Shannon's or fingerprints of another person the stroller may have had on it. Jack Earl Gibson, who had the nickname Root Beer Man, who was a pedophile, was known by Root Beer Man because he would give candy and soda, such as root beer, to children who would help clean his mobile home and take pics of them. He lived across the street from Halloween Man at 1374 Metz Court in Candlestick Park. When Jack Earl Gibson's home was searched on the night of Shannon's disappearance, the police found 4 indecent images of children. Afterwards, Gibson was subsequently arrested, and a full investigation and another search occurred. He then later faced 1,000 charges of possession of indecent material. He had images of girls between the ages of 6 and 12. Shannon had visited his home in the past before she disappeared, and he had paid her to clean his house. A dog, after smelling Shannon's clothing, went to Jack Earl Gibson Root Beer Man's home with his dog handler and showed significant interest in an area underneath his trailer. The dog was sniffing in the area for up to 45 minutes. Afterwards, the dog was told to move on, and then went to a wooded area by railroad tracks and over County Road 4, and then lost their scent. On the 29th of April, 2003, 13-year-old Tabitha Tutors disappeared after she left her house on her way to board a school bus, but never got on the bus and did not arrive at school. She was last seen early in the morning at her residence in Nashville, Tennessee. Some online sleuthers have speculated her case may be connected to Shannon Paulk's abduction and murder. 13-year-old Tabitha Tutors was never found. She is assumed to have been abducted and did not disappear on her own accord. It's been 23 years since 11-year-old Shannon Nicole Paulk disappeared, and the long investigation into her abduction and murder has not yet acquired the vital information and evidence to make an arrest. On Monday, February 23, 1987, in Leland, North Carolina, a 23-year-old mother named Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz was brutally murdered in the home she was living in with her cousin and her children. On the morning of February 23, 1987, at around 9:40 a.m., a man called her mother, Lorene Potter, asking about a waterbed she and her daughter were advertising for sale. Lorene Potter described the bed and gave the man directions to her daughter's home. She then called her daughter to tell her the man was coming, but her daughter, Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz, told her she had already sold the bed. Before hanging up, Lorene told her daughter to explain that the bed was no longer for sale and to not let him look at it. That was the last time Lorene Potter spoke to her daughter. Several hours later, Lorene Potter dropped by her daughter's home and found her lying in a pool of blood. She had been stabbed with a knife in the chest and back, and her hands were tied behind her back. Investigators also believed she had been sexually assaulted. Beverly's son, Andrew, who was just a day shy of being 2 years old, was at home when the murder occurred but was not harmed. Her other son, 4-year-old BJ, was visiting his paternal grandmother at the time of her death.
In February 1987, Jaye Potter-Mintz was a shy, sweet 23-year-old mother who loved to take care of her 2 sons and ride horses. Mintz was also trying to sell her waterbed, so she took out a newspaper ad, an ad that may have led to her death. On February 23rd, detectives believe someone claiming to be interested in the bed went to Mintz's house, raped, and killed her.
She died as a result of numerous stab and slicing wounds to the body. Is whoever committed this crime would be very bloody. There was a tremendous amount of blood spattered at the scene.
Mintz's mother, who lives nearby, found Jaye's body not long after the crime was committed. She also found little Andrew Mintz, who had watched the whole thing.
But I could hear the baby back in the bedroom, so I headed that way. And when I got to the bedroom door, it's just like I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. He just said that, mean man hurt mommy, mommy cry.
Potter has since raised both of her grandsons and says Andrew, who turned 2 the day after his mother's murder, doesn't remember enough to help detectives very much.
He was telling me all sorts of things. It was a white male. He pushed his way in. He had a knife. He made motion as, you know, he was stabbing her. He apparently saw everything.
Sheriff Hewitt says this is one of the cases he wants to solve the most because it was so brutal and because the killer is still at large.
In February 2000, after numerous leads which did not amount to an arrest, State Bureau of Investigation agent Tony Cummings gave his opinion on the profile of the suspect. He believes the killer was a stranger because Beverly's son Andrew did not know or recognize the person who entered the home. He revealed that in 1994 he went to Florida to talk to a possible suspect. The suspect was a carpenter with a minor criminal record of home burglaries and a history of beating his wife. Cummings turned up some traffic tickets that placed the man in Leland about the time of the murder. The man also worked for a waterbed company, although company records that could have pinpointed the dates had been lost. The investigators were re-energized. Then their hopes were dashed when the carpenter volunteered a blood sample. DNA testing not available earlier in the investigation eliminated him as a suspect. In 2017, Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz's cousin Renee Braswell spoke to HuffPost and revealed information about what Beverly's 2-year-old son told Lorene Potter, Beverly's mother. Braswell said one thing he remembered was a knock at the door. He told Lorene that Jaye looked out the peephole and she didn't see anybody. She opened the door and the man immediately came in. He said it was a white male, someone he didn't know. On Saturday, June 9, 2007, Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz's mother, Lorene Blake Potter, passed away suddenly of a heart attack at her residence. She was 63 years old. In May 2018, it was revealed new DNA technology was used to help the investigation, and investigators were waiting for new DNA results to come back on the case.
1987 on Village Road near Leland. Detectives were called to one of the most horrific murders in Brunswick County. Civilian investigative specialist Jim Westbrook with the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says 23-year-old Jaye Potter-Mintz was found stabbed to death in her home on February 23, 1987.
Jaye's body was discovered by her mother.
He says Jaye's mom, Laureen, also found the only known witness, Jaye's almost 2-year-old son.
He was telling me all sorts of things. It was a white male. He pushed his way in. He had a knife. He made motion as, you know, he was stabbing her. He apparently saw everything.
Now, 31 years have passed, and investigators are still looking for answers. But one thing at the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office has never changed.
Phil felt that Jaye deserved justice. This was something that really mattered to him. It mattered deeply.
Captain Phil Perry's desire to solve this case touched everyone who knew him.
He so wanted this to happen. He so wanted to know who did this, to give Jaye justice, to give her family some peace.
Perry retired from the sheriff's office in 2011, but continued working on the case with the Unsolved Unit.
He gave us time, he gave us talks, he would tell us things that none of us would have known or even guessed.
Civilian investigative specialist Mary Doncourt says Perry worked on this case until he died in February. But she says his work will live on.
For us, because he meant so much to us, we're just going to give him what he wanted, sooner or later.
So where is the investigation now?
Over the years, we're sitting on about 19,000 pages of investigative work.
Do you guys have suspects?
We have some, but we're not about to, at this time, disclose any information relating to them.
Is there anything new in the investigation that you can tell me about that's happened in recent years?
Basically new technology.
Doncourt says they are working with a lab that does phenotyping.
Basically, they take DNA, they feed it into a computer, and if you have a suspect's DNA, it will give you a facial approximation of what that suspect looks like.
In July, the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office purchased new DNA technology to use on this case and other unsolved cases. It's called an IMVAC system.
It's a giant vacuum cleaner. They wet down the piece and it just sucks everything up, so it pulls out far more DNA than the old method of just swabbing would do.
But whether it's new technology or old evidence, Doncourt says they will find the answer.
Phil taught me a lot, and one of the things he taught me is just don't give up. You know, you're going to get pushed away, you're going to be told no, that's okay. There's another string to pull, there's always something. We're just going to keep following that roadmap.
And while Phil won't make it to the end of the road with them, Doncourt says he helped them get to the next stop. And that's why they will not stop until they find justice for Jaye.
If we don't, there'll be other people coming along to do it, but we will find Jaye's killer.
The killer behind one of the most brutal murders in Brunswick County that remains unsolved.
In February 2021, in a Yahoo News article, it was revealed Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz's cousin Angela told Dateline that a few months before her murder, she had moved into the house in Leland with her young daughter. Angela told Dateline Jaye received unwanted attention from several admirers around that time. There was a man who would write, "I love you, Jaye," in the gravel drive of their house, and the man who left a single red rose for her at the restaurant where she worked. But Jaye, with her quiet demeanor, was always kind to them. But when the strange calls started, Angela was concerned. She said the calls began after Jaye placed the ad for the waterbed. The calls would be sexual in nature, and the caller would taunt both Jaye and Angela depending on who answered. About a week before Jaye's murder, Angela walked by her room and noticed that she seemed upset. She was lying on her bed and I asked her if everything was okay, Angela explained. She told me she had a dream about a strange man trying to kill her. After she was killed, I couldn't shake what she said. It's like she knew something was about to happen. At the time of the murder, Beverly had just recently been separated from her husband Billy, who was stationed in Germany at the time of her murder. Jaye got a job as a waitress at a restaurant near Wilmington and started dating again. Her husband, William Allen Mintz, passed away on the 8th of September 1993 at age 29. In April 2021, it was revealed by Star News that Lieutenant Israel West, detective with the Brunswick Sheriff's Office Unsolved Unit, said the murder investigation was handled poorly and that Mintz's case file was around 22,000 pages in length. He said the case was not cold. He said the killer was skilled and was able to get in and out of the house without anyone noticing or hearing a thing. It was revealed that Dr. Maurice Godwin, a criminal investigative psychologist and forensic scientist, had spoke to the neighbor of Jaye Mintz and that he was never interviewed until 2018. Godwin also said that the man who lived next door to Mintz had easy access to her back door where the killer went in. Investigators had known the killer came in through the rear door because the front door was still locked and there was a drop of blood found on the linoleum near the back door. Godwin said the neighbor was supposedly at work when the murder occurred, but his wife was home on the opposite side of the house and supposedly never heard anything. Godwin said no fingerprints were found and it was a very bloody scene. He believed her murderer could be a serial killer. He told Star News that he doesn't know if Jaye Mintz's nails had ever been scraped for DNA. The DNA investigators got was from the vaginal area, pillows and sheets. Godwin said Mintz was sexually assaulted and her body was placed in a sexual position with part of the pillow on her face. Nylon rope was used to bind Mintz's hands behind her back. He said it looked like the killer had some type of boating experience because of the way the knot was tied, and it was the kind of rope used to tie a boat to a dock. Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz had her throat slashed and was cut so deep her head was nearly severed from her body. She had been stabbed multiple times and raped. On Wednesday, November 27, 2024, Andrew J. Potter of Leland, North Carolina, son of Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz, who was in the home when she was murdered, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 39 from health-related issues. 23-year-old Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz's unsolved murder is 37 years old. There has been numerous leads and suspects that have been checked out in the investigation, but no breakthrough has occurred in the case. In Middleton, St. George, near Darlington, in County Durham, England, mother of three, 44-year-old Marianne Heron was found murdered in her living room on Friday, the 3rd of August 1990, by her husband Peter after sunbathing in the garden. She had been stabbed in the neck. There was no signs of a break-in at the house in Middleton, St. George, but a door was left open due to the sweltering temperatures. There was nothing in her house that was disturbed, and no items from her home were missing. The police believed the killer used a sharp knife similar to a Stanley knife, and that they could have crept in through a door which was left open. Her husband, Peter, put a sheet over her, and there was no evidence to confirm very early on in the investigation that she had been sexually assaulted. Forensic experts began combing through the grounds of Anne and her husband Peter's home on Saturday, the 4th of August, to see if they could find any valuable evidence that could link the attacker to the crime. A team of 30 detectives started working on the case from an incident room set up at the Darlington police station. Detectives believed someone could have spotted the killer and wanted to hear from anyone who was near the lay-by beside the victim's home between 2:30 p.m. and 5:50 p.m. on Friday, August 3rd, 1990. They also appealed for the owner of a dark blue estate car seen parked in the lay-by to come forward. The police said that it was either a Sierra or Montego and was parked a short distance from the driveway leading to her home. The lay-by beside Anne's home was popular with lorry drivers and caravanners. On Monday, August 6, 1990, Detective Chief Inspector Steve Bennett of Charles Cross Police Station gave out a warning about people sunbathing in their gardens, about falling victim to opportunist criminals. In the summer, there had been a spate of burglaries across Plymouth while householders were outside in the garden. Mr. Bennett said that the police had even known of break-ins happening while people have been enjoying barbecues. Detective Superintendent Keith Reedman, who was leading the murder inquiry, said they were treating the murder of Ann Heron as a sexually motivated crime. Mrs. Mary Ann Heron was stabbed to death in the living room of her luxury home in Middleston, St. George on Friday, the 3rd of August, 1990. The lead investigator believed the killer could strike again, and the police believe the weapon used is similar to a Stanley knife or scalpel. The attack was being treated as sexually motivated, but there was no physical signs of a sexual assault. Police believed Ann knew or recognized her killer and believe it was likely he was heavily blood-stained when he left the house. Police questioned motorists on the A67 near the home of Ann Heron and spoke to several of her friends who were cooperating fully with the inquiries despite the distress. Police also wanted to speak to anyone who was in the old farmhouse inn 800 yards east of the house who were staying there on the day she was murdered. At the Tuesday, 7th of August, 1990 press conference the police held at Darlington, County Durham, they revealed that they're looking for a jogger, a man, who was seen wearing a blue running vest and black shorts. He was seen running past the house on a 67 in the direction of Middleton, St. George. They were also looking for a blue car, possibly Ford Sierra-type car, with a large, distinctive CB-type aerial on its roof with chrome coiled springs on its base, which was parked in a small entrance off the A66 road near the roundabout leading to the A67 on the Friday afternoon. It was believed to be empty. A similar car was also seen in a lay-by near the victim's house later that afternoon. Durham Police Press Officer Inspector David Stainsby said at the press conference that the police need to trace the driver urgently and want him to come forward, or anyone who knows him to come forward. He also said the police want the jogger to come forward as a matter of urgency so that the police could eliminate him from their inquiries. On Wednesday, the 8th of August, 1990, a woman who did not leave her name called in the afternoon to the police, claiming she must speak to someone about the murder and did not leave her name. The young woman was very upset and crying. The police believed she had got a wrong number or a crossed line. The police wanted her to call again urgently. Ann Heron's husband, Peter Heron, broke down in tears at the Tuesday press conference and made a plea to the killer's wife to turn him in because he could strike again. A day or so after the press conference, it was revealed that he had an affair with a 32-year-old barmaid named Marion Dobson, who was also married to an older man, 52-year-old Mr. Albert Dobson. Peter and Ann Heron had 3 grown-up children from former marriages and had been married for 4 years. Mr. Jason Dobson, 24, said his father had booted out Mrs. Dobson, who was his stepmother, after she confessed to having the affair, and that Peter Heron was seeing Marion Dobson behind his wife's back since November 1989. On Tuesday, the 14th of August, 1990, 53-year-old Peter Heron gave a 500-pound reward to help the police as a gesture to help them in their investigation. Details of the reward had been printed on posters which the police distributed in the Darlington area. 2 weeks passed since 44-year-old Ann Heron had been brutally murdered, and the police were still hopeful information would come through about the owner of the car, which they described as being blue and possibly a Cavalier or Astra. The murder weapon had not been found after an extensive search of the house grounds and adjoining farmland. The police speculated that it could be a razor-sharp object like a DIY knife. On Sunday, August 19, 1990, the Sunday Sun posted an exclusive interview with the 53-year-old husband of Ann Heron, Peter Heron, who said that whoever killed his wife must hate women, and that is just how the Ripper started. On Thursday, the 23rd of August, 1990, the Journal posted an article that detectives appealed to the jogger to come forward and were surprised nobody recognized him. The spokesman for the police said it's a strong possibility the jogger is a local man who lived in the area. Police also said that he might be able to shed some light on the blue-colored car seen coming out of Mrs. Heron's house at 5:05 p.m. on the day of her death. In the article, it revealed that the police were also interested in a blue Sherpa-type van with a Trident logo on the side, which was seen parked at the bottom of the house drive between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. 3 men were believed to be inside it. On Thursday, the 23rd of August, 1990, the police also staged a reconstruction of the jogger seen in the area of Mrs. Heron's home during the afternoon of August 3rd when she was stabbed to death. Detective Chief Inspector Harvey Harris revealed that inquiries had revealed 2 sightings of a possible jogger near Mrs. Heron's home, Alien House, off the A67 Darlington to Yarm Road. The first was around 3:10 p.m. when a jogger was seen at the top of the drive. 2 hours later, a passenger in a taxi noticed a man running about 3/4 of the way along a footpath which passes the front of the house going towards Middleton, St. George. The man was noticed because it was so hot and he was running at quite a fast speed, faster than jogging pace. The man was wearing a singlet-type running vest and either black or dark navy jogging trousers with elasticated bottoms. The only description of the first sighting was that the man was wearing a navy t-shirt or vest and was of medium build. The second sighting described the man as 6 foot tall of medium build with dark wavy hair, which was chopped off at the nape of the neck. He was believed to be under 30 years of age. On Sunday, the 26th of August, 1990, the Sunday Sun released an article with the title, "Murder Dog That Doesn't Bark." The article claims Ann Heron's dog, Heidi the Collie, went from a lively pet to a nervous wreck, and now the dog keeps a lonely vigil on the drive of her owner's home, hoping her mistress will return. In the article, it claimed Mrs. Heron's throat was cut, and she bled to death in her living room beneath a photo of her 26-year-old son, Ralph, who was in his police uniform, who was a detective with Glasgow CID. Her husband, Peter Heron, said that the dog may be the key to the mystery and that the police checked her for fibers in case the killer left any clues behind. At the end of August 1990, the police investigating Ann Heron's unsolved murder set up a free 24-hour hotline to help the investigation. By September 1990, more than 2,500 people had been interviewed by the police. On Sunday, the 23rd of September 1990, the Sunday Sun revealed that Detective Superintendent Keith Reedman told them that a spate of murders and serious offenses in the region meant the forensic laboratory had a massive workload and that a sexual assault was a line of inquiry they were following in the unsolved murder of Ann Heron. In the article, it claimed detectives believed Ann Heron was sexually assaulted before she died. On the 4th of October 1990 Crime Watch TV airing, the reconstruction of Ann Heron's murder was shown and information about her case was brought up on the show.
Our first case is one that's already made national headlines, the murder of Ann Heron on the hottest day of the year. It was a Friday afternoon, Friday, August the 3rd, and temperatures almost touched 100 Fahrenheit, which means you might remember it. Where were you? The crime was committed in County Durham, though as you'll see, the killer could have come from anywhere in Britain. This is the market town of Darlington, and even early that Friday morning, the heat was becoming quite oppressive. At some time after 10, Ann Heron went shopping in the town with her friend Dawn Perry.
I've known Ann for 2 years now and became very good friends. She was a very loving person. You know, she would do anything for anybody. You know, she had a heart of gold. She was just a girl in a million. We were going to a party on the 3rd of August and she was really looking forward to having a good night out with all the girls, you know, a real good get-together.
Ann's home, Aeolian House, is a conspicuous building a mile from Darlington on the A67 towards Middleton, St. George. Ann was a Glaswegian who'd moved down here to County Durham when she met her husband 10 years ago. She loved the place, but she was frightened of its isolation and was wary of being alone in the house. Her friends say she was happy and bubbly with those she knew, but they describe her as rather private and a modest woman.
What a scorcher today, a wonderful Costa del sunny Friday afternoon in Cleveland, North Yorkshire and South Durham.
Her husband, Peter, whose office is just down the road, always came home for lunch.
Hello, Princess. How are you?
I'm okay. It wasn't so hot.
Aye.
Resist being sent home for yesterday's strike. Britain's hottest day, the temperature heads for 98 degrees. Renewed fighting has broken out in Kuwait as Iraqi troops...
Ah, great.
Yesterday, 8 American oil workers are reported...
You're not having anything?
No, I had something at McDonald's while I was out shopping.
Did you buy anything?
Just a birthday present for Diane.
And what are you doing this afternoon?
I thought I might do a couple of hours sunbathing. Didn't get a chance this morning.
At 2 o'clock, Peter went back to work.
We're off to an exhibition of old and rare musical instruments shortly. Such a Judy Zook and a new version of an old song.
Hello? Hello, Anne, it's Sheila. Oh, hi. I've been trying to get hold of you all week. Listen, I can't give you a lift to the party tonight. I'm really sorry. But the car's full up and I've no spare seats.
A friend, Sheila Eagle, is the last person known to have spoken to Anne. It's now 2:30.
Sorry. Don't worry, it's all right. Oh, okay. What are you up to this afternoon? I was going to sit in the garden and top up my tan.
Oh, you'll end up looking like a wizened old prune.
No, you're just jealous.
See you tonight, Anne.
Bye.
Just before 3:30, Margaret Shaw saw Anne sunbathing close to the house. This is the last known sighting of Anne. At about 4:45, a blue car, possibly an Astra, was seen outside Anne's house. And later, it's thought there was a blue Sherpa van parked at the end of the drive with 3 men in it. Just after 5, a taxi passed the house and the passenger saw someone running down the road. She thought it odd that a man was running so fast and, despite the heat, was in long trousers. He ran off towards Middleton St. George. At about the same time, a taxi driver noticed a car speeding down the drive away from the house. He wasn't sure if it was going to stop.
He came out behind me and accelerated very, very fast, past me straight. And as he passed me, I looked over and got a split-second glimpse of him, and he accelerated past over the roundabout, heading towards Darlington.
Just before 6 p.m., Peter Heron came home. Unusually, Anne was not there to meet him, and the front door was wide open. He found Anne's body in the living room. Her throat had been cut with something like a Stanley knife. Mr. Edmund, was it someone she knew? Do you know?
It's quite probable that she did know her killer, yes. There were no signs of a struggle either inside the house or outside of the house.
So presumably you need to know everyone who knew Anne, anyone at all?
We certainly do. We need to know anyone who we haven't contacted already who knew Anne.
There are clearly a lot of people we saw from that film that need to be eliminated. The jogger, for example, probably nothing to do with the crime, but could be a critical witness.
That's correct. He could be absolutely vital to us. He's probably a local man who was passing the house at about the right time and for some reason hasn't come forward. I would certainly appeal to him to come forward and speak to us, even at this late stage.
And then that car, so many people saw the car, one car speeding, one car parked outside a house, possibly the same one, even though seen by lots of different people.
That's probably right. We do think it is in fact the same car that was parked at the house and came down the drive, and it's vital that we in fact trace the owner of that vehicle.
That's obviously the most interesting of the sightings, coming so fast out of the house. And it's probable again that the van that was parked at the end is something you need to eliminate, isn't it?
That's correct, yes. The three men who were with that van parked at the end of the drive are essential witnesses, and we would urge them. There aren't many vehicles with such a sign as that on the side.
It's a Trident logo, or something. We think that's it from people's recollection. It's something like that.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of other people will have been going on this road. It's a main road, isn't it, out of Darlington to Teesside Airport?
That's right. The A67 is the main route from Darlington to Teesside Airport, and it's a very busy road. We need to speak to anyone who used that road that Friday afternoon. They could be essential witnesses. They may have seen something that we haven't found out yet.
OK. Well, if you think you were driving then, the date is the 3rd of August, Friday the 3rd. Check your diary if you've got one.
In the 7th of October 1990 Sunday Sun article, it was revealed that a woman who rang Durham Police HQ after the Crime Watch TV show might have vital information, and they urgently wanted her to ring back again. She had called and gave information, but had hung up before telling all she thought she knew. The police believed it was possible she was the same lady who called in at the beginning of the inquiry. On Tuesday, the 20th of November, 1990, the inquest into the death of Ann Heron occurred. Dr. James Sunter, who was at the inquest, said he examined the body of Ann Heron at the scene and later carried out a post-mortem examination. He said the cause of her death was hemorrhage and shock due to incised wounds to the neck. By the end of November 1990, Ann Heron's murder was still unsolved, and police believed that the killer might have shown up at her funeral. Her funeral service occurred in November 1990 after the inquest at St. Teresa's Roman Catholic Church in Darlington, where 100 people attended. Detectives observed the people who attended the service. By Christmas Eve 1990, police compiled a team of psychologists to work on an offender profile of the suspect. On Wednesday, the 17th of April, 1991, it was revealed by a police spokesman that 3 men were being questioned over the murder of Ann Heron. The men were being held separately at police stations in Darlington, Newton Aycliffe, and Bishop Auckland. The 3 men were later released on bail the next day. At the first-year anniversary of Ann Heron's murder in early August 1991, the daughter of Ann Heron gave an emotional statement, and Detective Superintendent Reedman said at the press conference, "Find the blue car and you will probably find the murderer." On Monday, the 18th of January 1993, the Journal reported that Peter Heron, the widower of Ann Heron, had remarried and wed telephonist Frida Buddy in a church ceremony in Scotland over the weekend. It was revealed in early October 1994 by the police that a series of letters were sent to Peter Heron by a man claiming to have killed 44-year-old Ann Heron at her home in Darlington. They also revealed the police and a local newspaper were sent letters by an author boasting of killing Ann Heron earlier on in the year 1994. The letter sent to the Northern Echo newspaper in Darlington said, "Hello, editor, it's me, Ann Heron's killer." And it ended with, "Your readers will have plenty to talk about," signed The Killer. A criminal psychologist and psychiatrist analyzed the letters and were helping to figure out the psychological traits of the author. In November 1994, the daughter of Ann Heron, Anne Marie Cockburn, made an appeal for information on her mother's unsolved murder after numerous letters were sent to the police and to her widow over an 8-day period. Detective Superintendent Keith Reedman, who was leading the investigation, claimed the killer comes from Darlington, and he said the letters contained vivid and authentic details that could have been written by the killer. Handwriting experts concluded that all the letters were penned by the same person. Handwriting samples were taken from an undisclosed number of witnesses from the Darlington area. By November 1994, almost 7,000 people had been interviewed by the murder squad and nearly 3,700 cars were checked. £5,000 was still being offered as the reward for information leading to the capture of Ann's killer. In 1997, a 29-year-old Philip Hann was interviewed in relation to the unsolved murder of 44-year-old Ann Heron whilst he was serving time in prison. Philip Hann was jailed in 1994 for a minimum of 12 years after a terrifying campaign that saw him follow and attack women out walking alone in Hartlepool, wearing a balaclava and holding a knife. In Wednesday, the 9th of November 2005, 70-year-old Peter Heron, the husband of Ann Heron, was arrested on suspicion of her murder. He was brought in for questioning from an address in Scotland to County Durham about the killing of his former wife, Ann. Durham police conducted a cold case review of the murder in 2005 prior to the arrest of Peter Heron and called in a leading forensic science expert to oversee a series of laboratory tests. More than 1,500 items were taken from the crime scene, and scientists re-examined a small number of them for clues. Peter Heron was granted bail on November 17, 2005, on the conditions that he would surrender his passport and any other travel documents. The murder charge against Peter Heron was later dropped in February 2006 after a barrister engaged by the Crown Prosecution Service after reviewing the evidence advised the case should be discontinued. Question marks surrounding the timeline of when haulage firm company director Peter Heron was at a meeting at Cleveland Bridge and his alibi for the tight period of time of him finding his wife deceased were put under scrutiny by Durham police. The police felt that they could not fully verify his movements between 4 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., and he had given conflicting accounts over the years about where he was at the exact timings of his movements on the day Ann Heron was murdered. Police questioned the route Peter Heron took after he said he left a meeting at Cleveland Bridge at 4 p.m. and said he had drove back to his office through the village of Croft-on-Tees and Cleveland Bridge, which was only 0.4 kilometers from Aeolian House, where Peter and Ann lived. Detectives questioned the route that Peter had taken because going via Croft was not the most direct or logical route from Cleveland Bridge. Durham police felt that Peter had a missing amount of time he could not account for between 4 p.m. and 5:50 p.m., the time period in which the murder occurred. Peter Heron had been in a meeting with clients at Cleveland Bridge at some point in the afternoon, but while he previously claimed that this meeting started at 3:15 p.m., his daughter testified on the 2022 Channel 5 documentary on the case that the meeting began at 3:45 p.m. and only lasted about 30 minutes. Peter Heron had originally said it started at 3:15 p.m. after being told by police that a former employee of his had reported seeing him driving erratically at high speed towards the murder house at 3:15 p.m. He said in 2016 that the meeting, which was taking place only 400 meters from Aeolian House, ended at approximately 4:30 p.m., but his daughter said in 2022 that it ended at approximately 4:20 p.m., while other sources claimed it ended at around 4 p.m. Peter Heron had been identified driving his white car around about 2 miles from his home, Aeolian House, between 3:50 and 3:55 p.m., when he was supposedly in the meeting with the clients. 3 separate witnesses in total reported during that time seeing a car that they thought may be Heron's traveling towards Aeolian House at a high speed, although each of the witnesses had given different descriptions of the car. Peter Heron said that after the meeting ended, he took a much longer route back to his office through the villages of Croft and Middleton St. George, meaning that he would not have driven past Aeolian House during the time period Ann Heron was murdered between 4 p.m. and 5:50 p.m. When police asked him why he did this, he said that he had gone to see a woman he was later found to be having an affair with. Peter Heron was interviewed a number of times and always maintained his innocence. His DNA was found on samples taken from his wife's body at the time of the murder. His semen was found on samples taken from the back of Ann Heron's throat. The Crown Prosecution Service had agreed to charge him after he was interviewed multiple times, but the case against him was discontinued due to lack of evidence after an additional expert opinion was obtained on the scientific evidence that was presented. In 2007, new forensic tests were conducted on what the Durham police described as crucial samples from the crime scene. Investigators said that advancements in technology had allowed them to use certain samples from the crime scene to be examined for the first time using super-sensitive technology. In 2020, a possible new suspect had been identified after 30 years had passed in the unsolved murder of 44-year-old Ann Heron. The potential suspect, who was identified by private investigator Jen Jarvie, was a man named Michael Albert Benson, a violent criminal who had an extensive criminal history that included the crimes of burglary, robbery with a carving knife against 3 people, and in December 1972, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for causing grievous bodily harm with a shotgun in Southampton. His photo was shown in a November 1990 airing of Crime Watch. Hampshire police were appealing for information about the whereabouts of Michael Benson, who was originally from Leeds. Michael Benson had disappeared after he left his wife in May 1990, taking her blue metallic Ford Orion.
First, can you help my Hampshire colleagues trace this man, Michael Albert Benson? He was sentenced to life imprisonment in December 1972, but since then has escaped twice and has been at large since May 1989. He even got married in the summer of '89 and lived in the Park Gate area of Southampton using the name Michael Johnston. He's 40 years old, 5'11", slim-build with a Yorkshire accent. He has 3 tattoos on each arm. One's of a woman's face with the word Mick under it. He's not seen his wife since May this year, although he may still be driving her car, a dark blue metallic Ford Orion like this. You may have seen him in it anywhere in the country, since he gets jobs with security companies and is known to travel extensively. But if you have seen him recently, please be careful. I must warn you that he is potentially dangerous and you should ring us rather than approach him yourself. But please do call.
On July 18, 1990, 2 weeks before 44-year-old Ann Heron was murdered, 2 women were attacked on the footpath beside the Ware in Durham City. Near Prebens Bridge, a man grabbed them from behind and threatened violence. He ran off when they gave him 35 pounds in cash. 2 photo fits were released on 2 separate incidents on attacks on women who were both middle-aged. The police believed the 2 men could be the same person. Police claimed the photo fit of the wanted man, believed to be the robbery suspect, was aged 30, 5'9" in height, stocky build with dark brown brushed back hair and a sun-tanned complexion. The attacker was never traced. Private investigator Jen Jarvie believed that the attacker could have been Michael Benson, who was on the run and dangerous, particularly to women, and the attack was just 25 miles from where, on August 3, 1990, Ann Heron was killed. In 2022, in the Channel 5 documentary, The Mysterious Murder of Ann Heron, private investigator Jen Jarvie revealed a man who was in home house prison with Benson years after the murder came forward, after seeing Benson's face associated with the crime during the 30-year anniversary appeal. He claimed that Benson told him he had killed a woman in Darlington who lived in an isolated home. Jen told Darlington Live that he described the house, said he had gone up the drive. He said he had gone to burgle the place and had come across this lady and had murdered her. Jen Jarvie said it was only when he saw on TV Michael Benson's face when they were talking about the murder of a lady in Darlington did he put 2 and 2 together. It's not a case many people know about. Despite this possible lead, Durham Constabulary said they investigated the alleged links to Michael Benson and found that there was no evidence to place Benson in the area at the time of the murder, and also revealed they were all but certain Benson was living abroad at the time of the attack. Detectives also had DNA samples from Benson's family to compare to the crime scene evidence. In May 2022, Durham Constabulary ruled out a connection to Benson, stating that he is not and never has been a suspect. In the 2022 Channel 5 documentary, The Mysterious Murder of Ann Heron, Durham Constabulary revealed that Peter Heron was still looked at as a possible suspect in her murder, along with various other unnamed individuals. 34 years have gone by, and the murder of 44-year-old Ann Heron still remains unsolved, despite investigators going through numerous leads, getting items forensically retested, and acquiring a suspect.